Hello, this is Pastor Micah from Life's Journey United Church of Christ, wishing you a blessing this week as we record a video of our midweek reflection. Normally, I have my midweek reflection written out, but this week it's only going to be on video because rather than sharing my own words, I'm going to be sharing some reflections related to Latinx or Hispanic Heritage Month, which began on September 15th. First of all, I do want to say what a joy it was to see all of you this Sunday for worship, and how I look forward to seeing all of you this coming Sunday. This coming Sunday will be our lakeside service at McIntosh Lake. Please reach out to me or to Shauna, our office manager, if you need information for directions. And we invite you to come. And whether you can reach out to us, please do come. But it would be helpful if you're planning to come and planning to bring friends and family, if you did reach out, so we can plan to have a plate available for you and for them. And also, if you reached out, to let us know if you're bringing a side dish or drinks. We're going to be at the location at McIntosh Lake from 10:30 to about 5:30. So we have a long time we can be there to celebrate. Paula and I look forward to seeing you, and I hope to bring some more family and friends with me as well. I mentioned that it is the middle of Latinx or Latin American and Hispanic Heritage or History Month, and because of that, the coming weeks I want to read about the lives of different saints, Christian heroes who are Hispanic or Latinx or Latin American. And today I want to read a devotional from the book All Saints, Daily Reflections on Saints for All Seasons. That is a record of the life of Oscar Romero, who is remembered and celebrated as a hero by many in the Latinx or the Hispanic community. He is remembered as the Archbishop and Martyr of San Salvador. He lived from 1917 to 1980, and San Salvador is the capital for El Salvador. And a quote that he's remembered for is, "I rejoice, brothers and sisters, that our church is persecuted precisely for its preferential option for the poor and for seeking to become incarnate in the interests of the poor. How sad it would be in a country where such horrible murders are being committed if there were no priests among the victims." And the book says the selection in 1977 of Oscar Romero as Archbishop of San Salvador delighted the country's oligarchy as much as it disappointed the activist clergy of the diocese. Known as a pious and relatively conservative bishop, there was nothing in his background to suggest that he was a man to challenge the status quo. No one could have predicted that in 3 short years, Romero would be renowned as the outstanding embodiment of the prophetic church, a voice for the voiceless, or as one theologian called him, a gospel for El Salvador. Nor could one foresee that he would be denounced by his fellow bishops, earn the hatred of the rich and powerful of El Salvador, and generate such enmity that he would be targeted for assassination, the first bishop slain at the altar since Thomas Becket in the 12th century. Something changed him. Within weeks of his consecration, he found himself officiating at the funeral of his friend Rutiolo Grande, a Jesuit priest of the Archdiocese who was assassinated as a result of his commitment to social justice. Romero was deeply shaken by this event, which marked a new level in the frenzy of violence overtaking the country. In the weeks and months following Grande's death, Romero underwent a profound transformation. Some would speak of a conversion, as astonishing to his new friends as it was to his foes. From one timid and conventional cleric, there emerged a fearless and outspoken champion of justice. Romero's weekly sermons, broadcast by radio throughout the country, featured an inventory of the week's violations of human rights. casting the glaring light of the gospel on the realities of the day. His increasingly public role as the conscience of the nation earned him not only the bitter enmity of the country's oligarchy or elite, but also the resentment of many of his conservative fellow bishops. There were those among them who muttered that Romero was talking like a subversive. The church in El Salvador was not the first church to suffer persecution. The anomaly here was that here the persecutors dared to call themselves Christians. Their victims did not die simply for clinging to their faith, but for clinging like Jesus did to the poor. It was this insight that marked a new theological depth in Romero's message. For Romero, the church's option for the poor was not just a matter of pastoral priorities, it was a defining characteristic of Christian faith. A church that does not unite itself to the poor in order to denounce from the place of the poor the injustices committed against them is not truly the church of Jesus Christ, Romero wrote. On another occasion, he said, on this point, there is no possible neutrality. We either serve the life of Salvadorans or we are accomplices in their death. We either believe in a God of life or we serve the idols of death. Once his course was set, Romero followed his path with courageous consistency. Privately, he acknowledged his fears and loneliness, especially the pain he felt from the opposition of his fellow bishops and the apparent distrust of Rome. Constantly, he was accused of subordinating the gospel to politics. At the same time, he seemed to draw strength and courage from the poor campesinos or farmers who embraced him with affection and understanding. With this people, he said, it is not hard to be a good shepherd. The social contradictions in El Salvador were rapidly reaching the point of explosion. Coups, counter coups, and fraudulent elections brought forth a succession of governments, each promising reform, while leaving the military and the death squads free to suppress the popular demand for justice. As avenues for peaceful systematically thwarted, full-scale civil war became inevitable. In 1980, weeks before his death, Romero sent a letter to President Jimmy Carter appealing for a halt to further U.S. military assistance to the junta, thus avoiding greater bloodshed in the suffering country. On March 23, 1980, the day before his death, he appealed directly to members of the military, calling on them to refuse illegal orders. He said, we are your people. The peasants you kill are your own brothers and sisters. When you hear the voice of the man commanding you to kill, remember instead the voice of God, who says, thou shalt not kill. In the name of God, in the name of our tormented people whose cries rise up to heaven, I beseech you, I beg you, I command you, stop this repression. The next day, as he was saying Mass in the chapel of the Carmelite Sisters Cancer Hospital where he lived, a single rifle shot was fired in the rear of the chapel. Romero was struck in the heart and died within minutes. Romero was immediately acclaimed by the people of El Salvador, and indeed by the poor throughout Latin America, as a true martyr and saint. For Romero, who clearly anticipated his fate, there was never any doubt as to the meaning of such a death. In an interview 2 weeks before his assassination, Romero said, I have frequently been threatened with death. I must say that as a Christian, I do not believe in death, but in the resurrection. If they kill me, I shall rise again in the Salvadoran people. Martyrdom is a great gift from God that I do not believe I have earned. But if God accepts the sacrifice of my life, then may my blood be the seed of liberty and a sign of the hope that will soon become a reality. A bishop will die. The church of God, the people of God, will never die. Romero's example is a challenge to all of us, not just our Latin American or Hispanic brothers and sisters, but each of us to think about who we stand with, who we stand for. Do we stand in solidarity with the oppressed, the marginalized, the poor, the left out around us? Or do we just look away as others suffer? That is something that's going on all over the place in our country. We're called by his example to be on the side of justice, to stand with the hurting, to be people of compassion, even when it's risky. May you and I, as we pause in the middle of the week and reflect on our lives, hear this call and answer. Amen. Amen. I hope to see you all this Sunday at the Lakeside service and to connect up with each of you at further events we have going on at the church. God bless you all.